Given the interval estimate for the mean, 8.4 to 15.6, the point estimate for the mean is blank, and the margin of error is blank. Alright, so we have a confidence interval, and that confidence interval has one endpoint at 8.4, that's the lower, and it has another endpoint at 15.6, which is the upper one. Now the way that we construct a confidence interval is we take a point estimate, which is probably in this case a sample mean, but it doesn't have to be. It can be any statistic. But you take your point estimate and you add your margin of error to that. Let me put ME to be consistent with the problem. So we add the margin of error to that to get the upper endpoint. And then we subtract the margin of error to the value to get the lower endpoint. So if we know the endpoints of the interval, we can kind of work in reverse and figure out what the sample mean is and the margin of error, or the point estimate, just supposing it's the sample mean. What I do know is that if I take 15.6 minus 8.4, then that right there would give me the distance between this endpoint and this endpoint, which is going to be twice the margin of error, because to get from 8.4 I would have to go one margin of error and another one, and that would arrive at 15.6. So if I take those numbers and subtract them, 15.6 minus 8.4, that gives me 7.2. So 7.2 is equal to twice the margin of error, which then I could just divide both sides of this equation by 2 to arrive at the actual margin of error, which is 3.6. Alright, so my margin of error is 3.6, but I still haven't figured out what the point estimate is. Oh, you know what? It did say it's for the mean. I've been just assuming it is, but it is for the mean. Okay, so now what I can do, since I know the margin of error, the distance between the sample mean and the lower endpoint is a distance of the margin of error. So if I go from 8.4 plus the margin of error, which is 3.6, that would put me right at the sample mean, which in this case is 12. And if you'll notice, if you went from 12 plus 3.6, that would put you at 15.6, which reinforces that you've got the correct value.